Welcome to my channel, USA Battle Zone. Tonight, I want to tell you a story you'll never forget. A story about courage, loss, and the sound that silenced an entire base. So, sit back, turn up your volume, and imagine yourself standing under the cold steel sky of Afghanistan, because this isn't just a story. It's a moment that changed everything. The desert air was heavy with dust and diesel. The wind howled across the camp, carrying the metallic scent of spent shells and the faint hum of generators. Soldiers moved like shadows, tired, armored, and alert. The war had stripped them of laughter, of softness, except tonight. It was a night like any other until Private Emma Caldwell walked into the firing range. She was small compared to the others, barely 5'4", with a messy bun tucked under her helmet and freckles that made her look more like someone who should be serving coffee at a diner than holding an M24 sniper rifle. The men of Echo Company watched her walk in, a few smirks curling across faces weathered by months of battle. "Careful, sweetheart," one of them said, voice full of condescension. "That rifle kicks harder than your makeup kit." The laughter that followed rolled through the dusty range like thunder. Emma didn't flinch. She just walked up to the bench, calm and quiet, eyes scanning the long stretch of desert beyond the sandbags. She placed her helmet on the table, took a slow breath, and picked up the rifle. It looked too big in her hands. Too heavy. Too deadly. They laughed again, because that's what soldiers did when they didn't understand something. When fear and pride twisted together, laughter was the only thing that made sense. But Emma didn't care. She slid the bolt, checked the chamber, and spoke softly, almost to herself. "Targets at 800 yards. Winds shifting south." Sergeant Miller raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that, rookie? You ever even fired one of those before?" She didn't answer. Her finger found the trigger, slow and steady. The scope reflected the fading sun as she locked her gaze on a distant metal silhouette. Then, crack, the laughter stopped. The target's head snapped backward, a perfect center hit. Someone muttered, "No way." She didn't look up. She adjusted her scope, chambered another round. Crack, the next target fell, and the next, and the next. 6 shots. 6 perfect kills. No misses. No hesitation. When she finally stood, the desert was silent except for the echo of her last shot rolling over the dunes. Every soldier who had laughed before was staring at her, their pride melting into disbelief. And that was the moment Echo Company stopped underestimating her. Over the next few weeks, Emma proved herself again and again. She wasn't the loudest or the toughest, but she was calm when everyone else broke. When the patrols turned deadly, she was the first to spot ambushes before they happened. When bullets tore through the night, her aim stayed true. But what made her different wasn't her skill. It was the why behind it. Back home, before the war, Emma's brother, Daniel, had been a Marine. He'd been the one who taught her how to shoot, how to stay calm, how to breathe when the world went dark. But Daniel never came home. His convoy had been ambushed 2 years before Emma enlisted. She'd joined not out of rage, but out of something quieter. A promise. Every time she held that rifle, she whispered to herself, "This is for you, Danny." One night, just before dawn, the alarm tore through the base. The sound was deafening. Sirens screaming, radios crackling with panic. "Contact! Contact! East perimeter!" Emma was out of her cot before her boots even touched the ground. She grabbed her rifle, sprinted through the dim red light of the barracks, and slid into the guard tower overlooking the open desert. Through her scope, she saw them, shadows moving fast across the sands. Dozens of them, insurgents, heavily armed, closing in. Echo Company, line up defense. Sergeant Miller's voice thundered through the comms. "We hold this line or we die trying." The first RPG hit the southern wall, shaking the earth. Fire lit the sky. Bullets screamed through the night. Emma found her spot at the tower's edge, exhaled, and squeezed the trigger. One by one, the shadows dropped. Every shot was deliberate, every breath steady. But then the radio cut in. Miller's hit. Were pinned down by the fuel trucks. Emma's pulse spiked. The trucks were a death trap. One spark, and half the base would go up. She swung her scope, searching, then she saw him. Miller was down, leg bleeding out, while an enemy with an RPG was taking aim right at him. She didn't think. She didn't hesitate. She whispered, For you, Danny. Crack. The RPG exploded midair, a blinding flash lighting the desert like sunrise. The shockwave knocked Miller back but saved his life. Emma reloaded, firing again and again, buying time for the medics to drag him to cover. Sweat poured down her neck. Her shoulders ached, but she didn't stop. The night stretched on like a fever dream. Bullets, screams, sand, and silence between the chaos. Every shot she took echoed with something deeper, something sacred. When the sun finally rose, the desert was littered with silence. Smoke curled from the dunes. The air was thick with dust and burnt metal. And Echo Company was still standing. Miller limped over, his leg bandaged, face pale. He stopped in front of her and looked out over the battlefield. "You did this," he said quietly. "You saved the base." She shook her head. "We did this." He smiled, but his eyes were glassy. "No, Caldwell, you did." For the first time, she let herself breathe. And for the first time since Daniel's death, she allowed a tear to fall. Weeks later, Command sent in a camera crew to document the unit's survival story. They wanted to show America a tale of courage. The footage would play on news channels, soldiers standing tall, waving the flag. When it was Emma's turn to speak, she froze in front of the lens. Cameras had never scared her before, but this wasn't about her. She looked at the lens, her voice soft. "I just did what I was trained to do," she said. "We all did. But, if this footage ever reaches my mom back home, I want her to know, I kept my promise." She blinked back tears, then turned away before they could roll. That night, under the broken stars, Emma sat alone by the watchtower. The base had grown quiet again. Only the wind and the low hum of the generators kept her company. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a dog tag, her brother's. The edges were worn, the letters faded. "Hey, Danny," she whispered. "You were right. It's not about being the best shot. It's about keeping people alive." She smiled faintly. "Guess I finally get it." A shadow moved behind her. It was Sergeant Miller. He sat down beside her, slow and careful, a cigarette burning between his fingers. "You know," he said after a long pause, "they're talking about giving you a medal for that night." She chuckled. "I don't want a medal." "I figured." He took a drag and exhaled. "So what do you want?" Emma looked out at the endless desert, the horizon turning gold. "I want the laughter to stop." Miller frowned. "The laughter." She nodded. "The kind that comes when people doubt someone because they don't fit the mold. Because they look small, or soft, or scared." He didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "Well, you sure as hell stopped it." The silence between them was heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was the silence of understanding. The kind that comes after survival. Months passed. The war dragged on, as wars do. But something had changed in Echo Company. The men who once mocked her now followed her lead. They asked for her opinion before missions. They trusted her instincts. She'd earned her place. Not through shouting, not through pride, but through quiet, relentless courage. Then, one evening, the orders came down. Operation Hallowed Ground. It was a final sweep, a dangerous push through a hostile valley to clear out enemy strongholds. Everyone knew it was risky. Everyone knew not all of them would make it back. Before dawn, they geared up. The sky was black, the stars hidden. Emma double-checked her rifle, then paused. She could feel something, a chill that ran deeper than fear. Miller caught her staring at the horizon. "You good?" She nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just feels different." He patted her shoulder. "That's because it's the last one." The convoy rolled out. Engines growled through the valley, dust rising behind them like ghosts. For hours, nothing. Just the sound of tires and the rhythmic hum of radio chatter. Then, boom. The first truck went up in flames. The ambush was surgical. Snipers on the ridge, mortars from the east. Chaos erupted. "Take cover. Take cover." Emma hit the dirt, scanning through her scope. She spotted muzzle flashes along the cliffs and started firing, precise and unshaken. Her shots cut through the noise like thunder. "Miller, I've got your flank covered," she shouted, but there was no response. She looked down the line, and saw him. Miller was pinned behind a burning vehicle, wounded again. Enemies were closing in fast. Without thinking, she ran. Bullets ripped the ground around her, sparks flying off the armor plates. She slid behind the wreckage, grabbed Miller's vest, and dragged him toward the rocks. "Don't you die on me," she yelled, breath ragged. He tried to speak, but blood bubbled from his lips. "Emma, go." "No," she snapped. "Not this time." She fired again, hitting two insurgents who broke from cover. Her hands were shaking, but her aim never wavered. "Come on, old man," she said, hauling him with everything she had. "We're going home." And then, a sharp crack. Her body jerked. She froze, looked down. A dark bloom spread across her vest. The world started to fade. The sound, the light, the chaos, all slipping away like water through her fingers. She fell beside Miller, her rifle still in hand. He screamed her name, but she couldn't hear it. The only sound she heard was her brother's voice, soft and distant. "You did good, Em." The valley grew quiet, and for the second time in her life, the base went silent. Days later, Echo Company returned home. The mission was a success, but at a cost. They held a ceremony on the tarmac under the wide American sky. Miller stood on crutches, his eyes hidden behind dark glasses. In his hands, he held Emma's rifle. The commander spoke words about bravery, sacrifice, and honor. But it was Miller's voice that cut through the crowd. "She didn't fight for medals," he said. "She fought for us, and because of her, we're all standing here today." He raised the rifle, the sunlight glinting off its barrel. "She was the best damn soldier I ever knew." The crowd was silent, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, one by one, the soldiers of Echo Company stepped forward. They laid their dog tags at the foot of the memorial stone carved with her name. Private Emma Caldwell. She silenced the noise. Cinematic pause. Slow piano music. The camera fades from the memorial to the open desert, still, quiet, endless. The same place where she once stood, rifle steady, laughter echoing behind her. And now, there's no laughter. Just respect. Just memory. Just the sound of the wind whispering through the sand. Voiceover. Heroes don't always look like what we expect. Sometimes, they're quiet. Sometimes, they're small. Sometimes, they're the ones we laugh at. Until the moment we see what they're truly capable of. Emma Caldwell didn't fight to prove herself. She fought because she believed that courage doesn't come from power, it comes from purpose. And she found hers, right here, in the silence. Fade out. Soft background music. If you felt something tonight, if this story touched you, hit that like button, leave a comment to honor those who serve. And don't forget to subscribe to USA Battle Zone for more real, powerful stories of courage from the front lines. Because sometimes, the bravest battles are the quietest ones.